For those of you who've been waiting for my review of this week's Samurai Jack, I'd like to apologize that it got out late. Firstly, I was reviewing this week's MLP and I was spending time with family during Easter. I did see the episode the night it premiered, but I was with my dad, so I didn't have the resources and environment necessary to make this review. But I'm ready now, and I want to make up for lost time. The episode starts off pretty slowly as an army led by the Scotsman is ready to infiltrate and attack Aku's lair. The scene plays out pretty well as the slow panning camera movement helps set the tone before getting into the action. An overview of a wasteland accompanied by the intimidating presence of Aku's lair is pretty effective for what the opening is establishing. And when the Scotsman shows up, you know you're in for something amazing. His introduction with his army of daughters following his direction before we see him coming out in a wheelchair with the first thing we see up close being his Gatling gun leg is drastically fitting for his nature. With a single close-up and zoom-out shot, they capture the presence of this character greatly, and it's way more fun when he starts talking. Like an overdramatic father trying to communicate with stubborn teenagers, and the scenario they're currently in somehow comes across as hilariously unfitting. The way the epic music stops for this bit of banter also helps to make the joke more effective. And the Scotsman's delivery is spectacular. Despite being an old man in a wheelchair, he's still a determined and cocky powerhouse who's even still got his muscle on him. He takes initiative in leading the charge against Aku and has that fiery spirit of a warrior we've always loved about him. Just his battle cry alone gets you really pumped up as you see everyone charging at the fortress. We then see Aku being annoyed by the noise outside, only to see that it's an attack on his fortress. He decides to engage in the battle, thinking it'll give him a boast of excitement as he transforms into a giant boulder, annihilating all of the armies in his path. The Scotsman realizes that Aku is too strong for them and buys his daughters time to escape as he distracts him. The way he says the line and the facial expression that goes with it shows that he's aware of his impending death. But he's going to face it without fear and with a sense of dignity. I mean, he wouldn't be the Scotsman otherwise. Plus, he shows a protective nature as a father in distracting Aku from his children. And the way he tells off Aku is awesome. Despite this being on Adult Swim, he doesn't use any profanity, but that just makes him even more badass because it shows that Scotty doesn't need to use profanity to insult someone. Plus, the choice of words he comes up with is both intimidating and humorous, with the tone of his delivery making it all the more fantastic. Aku taking in the criticism all stoic-like makes the comedy more effective as it expresses how annoyed he is with Scotty's motor mouth. And without warning, Aku just kills Scotty with laser vision in front of his kids while hiding from view. Even knowing that Scotty was gonna get himself killed, the moment still catches you off guard. And Scotty was such a fun character that the disbelief that he's actually gone really hits you, making his death more effective. Plus, there's more insight as to how Aku feels after all these years of world domination, plus the 50 years that Jack has been around. He was actually finding joy and relaxation in dominating the armies, but then he loses it when he feels reminded of Jack. It could be that there's more of a connection between Aku's boredom and his old battle with Jack than he's letting on, and how this lost spark may be from a hidden desire of sorts. He certainly shows that Scotty's comments got to him on some level, and he continues to contemplate on Jack after it's all over. And what follows is both a pretty sad and overwhelmingly joyous moment. All of Scotty's daughters kneel to him in respect as Flora digs his broken blade into the ground. They pay the best respect to him as they could, as warriors and as his children. But then his ghost rises from the ashes and you may find yourself both shocked and laughing at the same time. He just died, and yet he's still kicking with a high-spirited attitude, which helps to encourage his daughters. He says that they'll regroup and come back with a bigger army, and with Jack at their side, they'll finally defeat that big baby. The moment is just done so perfectly that you feel like it raises your spirits after you just went through a hopeless struggle, giving you a sense of hope that things are going to get more awesome in the future. You just know that when Scotty promises something, he plans to deliver, and you're just in anticipation to see what it is. But there's other stuff going on as we see that Ashi is going through an inner conflict with her mother, as she wants to know the truth about what's really going on. It begins with Ashi quietly sitting down, really thinking about everything she knows, questioning her reality. The scene is done in a very subtle approach, and it makes Ashi's contemplating feel more interesting and mysterious. She thinks about both her mother's and Jack's words, not fully sure who should be trusted. Even the conversation she has with her mother is segued in a way that we're not sure if it's real or just in her mind. We're really delving into Ashi's character here as she shows a desire to stand for herself instead of just listening to what someone else tells her. It's followed by a pretty relaxed moment between Ashi and Jack as they ride onto shore on the back of a sea dragon. It mostly focuses on Ashi observing the nature of the ocean, and it's actually done very nicely. The music has a tribal tone to it that fits the visual style that the scene goes for, and it takes some time to do fun things with the setup. There's a majestic view underwater as the sunlight peeks through the particles, a dolphin swimming alongside them to give the moment some additional charm, and then they go for this grand shot of the dragon leaping into the air with Ashi overlooking the ocean, and the intense pressure she feels as they fall back into the water. This scene has such a sense of wonder to it as well as a hint of excitement that actually doesn't feel out of balance with the mood of the previous scenes. After the two arrive on land, Ashi takes time to confront Jack after he goes his separate ways with her, but not before we see how unstable his mind is becoming. Despite his confidence, his psyche is still greatly damaged in a sense where you have no way of knowing when Jack could just snap at any moment. You can tell he's just getting more worn out each day, and the toll it's taking on him is intense. Ashi tries to confront Jack over the truth, but then gets reasonably upset when he refuses to tell her. She's clearly been through a lot since her years as a child, and is now starting to feel as if everything she endured was for nothing. Her frustration is really showing, and Jack just assuming she won't change makes her even more impatient. Being in a situation where she doesn't know who to believe or who to trust causes her to really feel on edge, and feels as if Jack simply doesn't want to be proven wrong, which makes her feel even more lost and confused. Like her decision to not kill Jack was a wasted opportunity. She also mentions how he knows nothing about her, thinking that he has no right to assume anything considering how harsh her upbringing was for a pathway that was never hers to decide. Of course, Jack decides to show her, but to wait until morning since he's tired and needs his strength rejuvenated. Despite her impatient groan, Ashi decides to lie on a rock nearby, which is showing that she's at least willing to give Jack a chance and put trust in him. There's also a nice sense of conflicting personality between them just before Ashi storms off. Just seeing the two staring at each other really shows a strong contrast between their level of patience, with Jack's more peaceful upbringing and lifestyle facing off against Ashi's brutal and rushed development. The two are placed in a situation where they need to trust each other, and it's not going to be easy. She asks Jack about the stars thinking that it's Aku's creation, but Jack tells her a different story, one that he heard from his mother as a child. The story of sun and moon and how they rode a phoenix into the darkness of the universe's beginning, shooting enchanted arrows breathing life into the cosmos. The scene has a very calm and gentle tone to it, and even has a creative idea behind it. As Jack tells his story, we see a shot of Ashi's curiosity right before we're shown any visuals. This gives you the impression that as Jack is telling the story, Ashi is the one envisioning the story with her imagination. She listens to Jack's descriptions of everything told to her and gives it an elegant tone considering her greater understanding of the world around her, at least when compared to her sisters. She feels at ease listening to Jack's story, with this being her first instance of seeing the world through the perspective of someone else besides Aku. It even has a nice edge to it, with this being the last event before the commercial break, creating a more relaxed atmosphere and putting the audience at ease before harsher elements of the episode come into play. The next day, Jack takes time to show Ashi what Aku's influence has done to the world. Fields of dead trees, polluted cities, criminals ravaging lands of the innocent, a grave of animals, even villages set on fire. The entire montage takes its time, allowing both Ashi and the viewer to recognize how much worse things have gotten because of Aku. The use of different angles and views of the environments around them, as well as the intimidation factor of the music that plays during these moments, all of it comes together in a deep and really impactful way. And the montage still finds an opportunity to do something funny with Ashi just staring at Jack's fashion sense, or at least whatever clothes he can use to disguise himself. It's just so quiet and visually dependent, but emitting such an awkward vibe that you can't help but chuckle at it. And finally, Ashi comes to the realization that Aku is evil and she was always wrong about him. It's shown in a way where she can't believe all the horrible stuff she's seeing, but doesn't deny it either. The disbelief comes from how all that she sees is in conflict with the faith she was taught to believe in from birth. But she also accepts that this ravaged, dying world is completely opposite of the way she was raised into believing it was like. She understands that Aku is the true threat to nature and must do something about it. Jack, however, explains how without his sword, there is no hope of defeating Aku. He really goes into detail as to how much his hope has withered away over the years, which I'm sure Scotty would be pretty pissed off about. All that Jack can do now is try to survive while helping those who still need him in whatever way he's able to. It's strange to see him still fighting despite his claims that there's no way to win. It could be his remaining sense of honor that's driving him to keep fighting for what's right, or it could be that he just doesn't want to dishonor his parents. Whatever reason, it seems shrouded in mystery but still present enough to have some kind of idea of what Jack is going through. The two are then confronted by one of the surviving villagers of the destroyed village and are told that they need to rescue the captured children. They find their way into an abandoned factory and discover that the children are being controlled by a frequency device and must disable it. And needless to say, this first scene in the factory is haunting. It sucks you into the crimson atmosphere with a subtle progression right before we see the children just standing there in silence. And when the frequency kicks in, they become these screaming, bloodthirsty beasts who mindlessly attack our heroes. It's visually creepy and has a strong, threatening vibe to it. Ashi tries to find the control center but is ambushed by the enforcer of the facility. She tries to fight back but is soon captured and restrained as she's faced with the enforcer's torture while Jack continues to fight the children. The animation here is highly expressive, from the stretched designs of Jack and Ashi while being attacked to a seemingly increase of frames per second, adding more life and movement to their models. It even has more atmospheric horror with Jack trying to hide but is quickly found by a single child before the whole horde charges in at him. And even as he tries to escape, he's dragged back into the room helplessly as they overwhelm him. Meanwhile, the enforcer gloats at Ashi over how children were the perfect tool to use against Jack's moral compass. As she's gloated, her rage grows strongly, and you really get an impression of how pissed off she is due to her strained facial expressions and that furious look in her eyes. Through an impossibly ridiculous amount of willpower, she frees herself, beats the hell out of the enforcer, and throws him into the control room where he explodes and causes the frequency chips in the children to malfunction. Her anger is pretty powerful to watch, from the way she fights back to even that shadowy shot of her after killing the enforcer. She's by far the fiercest ally Jack has had thus far, and considering her upbringing, she's potentially the most dangerous as well. Seeing how the malfunction has supposedly killed the children, Jack is completely traumatized and falls into a distraught set of mind. That facial expression is so powerful and haunting. He doesn't just look traumatized, he looks completely destroyed. His spirit has been shattered, as if everything he's worked for was a complete waste. And then the green mist figure appears before Jack, telling him that it's time. Jack slowly stands up and accepts whatever fate this figure has in store for him. Before this, some have told me that this figure is supposed to represent the warrior he was fighting when he lost his sword, or a haunted version of himself, both of which Jack would be afraid of. But now it seems that this green mist figure was something that Jack has been avoiding this whole time, like he was trying to deny something for all these years and now realizes he can't escape it. Ashi appears before the children as they regain consciousness, but calls out to Jack only to see that he's disappeared, and the episode ends there. That's a pretty intense cliffhanger. Two things that I really like about this episode is the shift in color tones as well as the transition between moods. It may seem that the episode does a lot of mood whiplashing at first, but when you really look at the way the story is constructed, it all feels like it was very well timed. The happy, sad, dramatic, funny, intense, scary, gentle, and mysterious vibes are all coordinated in a way that melts together with the way the story is paced. It doesn't feel overwhelming at all. Rather, it ends up feeling like a compilation of different emotional experiences, which gives the episode a more artistic visual edge. Then there's the color choices. The episode does a great job in adding an appeal to each and every background that it uses. The different sets of colors as well as the tone within the atmosphere gives a sense of travel and adventure to the story, and it's all animated vibrantly so it all fits together. I didn't think it was possible, but I really do feel as if each episode of Season 5 has been better than the last one. It could be because of how this season is strictly story-driven compared to the first 4, and the way it's being built up so far is really captivating. We're at least halfway through, and it feels like so much has happened already, but it's paced in a way that's not overwhelming and easy to follow. Despite the Scotsman being more of an advertisement for the episode than an actual element in the story, this is really my new favorite episode of Season 5. And I'm guessing that by some chance the next episode will be even better. And that's a great sign for your show if each episode feels more grand and entertaining than the previous one. Thanks again for watching my review of Samurai Jack Season 5. Feel free to share this video anywhere you like, and until next time, take care of yourselves and have a great day. MisAnthro Pony, over and out. Watch out.